They called humanity the silent death across 17 star systems. Not because humans were the strongest, the Krillian Empire could crush planets with their war moons. Not because they were the fastest, the Zephyrian fleet could cross galaxies in mere cycles. And certainly not because they were the most technologically advanced, the ethereal collective had mastered reality manipulation itself. No, humanity earned that name because when they decided you were their enemy, you never saw them coming until it was already too late. The Galactic Council had made a fatal mistake. They underestimated the species that had clawed its way from the muddy trenches of a backwater world to the stars themselves. They saw humans as crude, emotional, and predictable, perfect subjects for their pacification protocol. What they didn't realize was that humanity had spent millennia perfecting the art of war not through brute force, but through cunning, patience, and the ability to turn their enemies' strengths into weaknesses. Every human child learned the stories of Sun Tzu, Machiavelli, and countless other strategic minds who understood that the greatest victories were won before the first shot was ever fired. Now, as the Council's massive fleets moved to subjugate Earth and its colonies, they were about to learn why humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their ships, their technology, or their numbers, it was their minds. And, in the vast chess game of interstellar warfare, humans had been playing 10 moves ahead since the moment first contact was made. The galaxy was about to discover that when humanity goes to war, silence is their symphony, strategy is their strength, and, when they finally strike, perfection is their promise. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in the war room beneath the Swiss Alps, her dark eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of star charts that showed the positions of 7 different alien fleets converging on human space. Around her, the finest military minds from every nation on Earth worked in hushed tones, their voices barely above whispers despite being 3 kilometers underground in one of the most secure facilities ever built. "Status report," Chen said quietly, her voice carrying the weight of command that had been earned through 30 years of service, from the slums of Neo-Singapore to the highest echelons of the newly formed Human Defense Coalition. General Marcus Webb, a tall man with silver hair and scars that told stories of humanity's early conflicts with pirate fleets in the outer colonies, stepped forward. His weathered hands moved through the holographic interface, highlighting different sectors of space in red. "The Galactic Council's ultimatum expires in 72 hours. Long-range sensors confirm what our intelligence networks have been reporting for months. The Krillian Empire has positioned their Devastator-class dreadnoughts along our outer perimeter. The Zephyrian fleet has taken positions near the asteroid belts, cutting off our mining operations. The ethereal collective hovers just beyond the edge of our detection range, but we know they're there." Dr. Elena Vesquez, the coalition's chief xenobiologist and, arguably the human who understood alien psychology better than anyone else alive, manipulated her own section of the display. Species profiles appeared alongside the fleet positions, showing detailed psychological assessments of each major alien race. The Council believes they're dealing with a typical emerging civilization. Their historical data shows that most species either submit immediately when faced with overwhelming force or make desperate, emotional attacks that are easily countered. They expect us to choose one of these 2 responses. Chen nodded slowly, her fingers steepled in front of her face. "And that's exactly why they're going to lose." The room fell silent except for the quiet hum of advanced computing systems processing terabytes of strategic data every second. On the wall screens, real-time feeds showed activity across human space. Civilian transports appeared to be fleeing toward the inner colonies, their ion trails visible as bright streaks against the darkness. Military vessels seemed to be scrambling in apparent panic, moving in formations that looked desperate and uncoordinated. "Ma'am," Captain Torres, the coalition's youngest fleet commander at only 28 years old, looked up from his tactical station. "Are you certain about maintaining the deception? Our people in the outer colonies are asking questions. Some of the civilian leadership is demanding to know why we're not mobilizing everything we have." Chen smiled for the first time in hours, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. It was the smile of someone who had studied every human military strategist from Alexander the Great to Vong Guinjiap, who had memorized Sun Tzu's art of war in 3 different languages, and who understood that the greatest victory was achieved when your enemy defeated himself. "Captain, the moment we appear strong, we lose the advantage. Let me ask you something. When you were a child, did you ever play chess?" Torres nodded, uncertain where this was leading. What's the most important piece on the board? The king, ma'am. Wrong. Chen's voice remained gentle, but her words carried absolute certainty. The most important piece is the one your opponent isn't watching. Every great victory in human history has come not from brute strength, but from misdirection, patience, and the willingness to appear weak when you are strong. General Webb, who had known Chen since their days fighting in the colonial wars, understood immediately. The apparent panic, the scattered formations, the civilian evacuations that look chaotic but follow very specific patterns. All part of the opening moves, Chen confirmed. Dr. Vasquez, remind everyone what we learned about the council species during first contact. The xenobiologist pulled up psychological profiles that had been compiled over years of careful observation and interaction. The Krillians value direct confrontation and view retreat as the ultimate dishonor. They expect their enemies to meet them in open battle. The Zephyrians prize speed and technological superiority, believing that swift, decisive strikes determine the outcome of any conflict. The Ethereals consider themselves intellectually superior to all other species and approach warfare as a mathematical problem with predictable solutions. And what's the one thing all three species have in common? Chen asked. Arrogance, Dr. Vasquez replied. They've never encountered a species that could match their particular strengths, so they've never needed to adapt their strategies. They fight the same way they did 1,000 years ago because it's always worked. Captain Torres was beginning to understand. But humans are different. We've fought ourselves for millennia. Every strategy, every tactic, every psychological approach to warfare has been tested and refined through thousands of conflicts across our own history. Exactly. Chen turned back to the star chart, her fingers dancing through the holographic interface to reveal hidden layers of information. What had appeared to be panicked, scattered human forces suddenly showed themselves as carefully positioned assets, each one exactly where it needed to be for maximum strategic effect. The Council thinks they're facing a primitive species that will either surrender or lash out desperately. They have no concept of an enemy that might choose a third option. The war room's main screen shifted to show a timeline spanning the next 96 hours. It was divided into phases, each one labeled with cryptic designations that meant nothing to outside observers but revealed the complexity of human planning to those who understood the code. General Webb studied the timeline with growing appreciation. The first phase maintains the illusion of chaos while our assets move into position. The second phase allows them to believe they're winning. The third phase is when they realize they've been fighting the wrong enemy entirely, Chen finished. Dr. Vasquez, initiate protocol Machiavelli. General Webb, signal all field commanders to proceed with Operation Phantom Knight. Captain Torres, I want you to personally oversee the coordination with our civilian intelligence networks. It's time to show the galaxy why humans survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and the colonization of hostile worlds. As the orders went out, the apparent chaos in human space began to take on a different character for those who knew what to look for. Civilian transports that seemed to be fleeing in panic were actually moving in carefully coordinated patterns, ceding predetermined positions with supplies and equipment. Military vessels that appeared to be retreating were withdrawing to positions that would provide maximum tactical advantage in 72 hours. Mining operations that looked abandoned were being converted into something else entirely. Ma'am, Dr. Vasquez said quietly, there's one more thing the Council species have in common that might be relevant. What's that? In their entire recorded histories, none of them have ever encountered a species that wages war the way humans do. They've never fought an enemy that views conflict as both an art and a science, that studies not just the tactics of battle but the psychology of victory itself. They've certainly never faced an opponent that learned to fight by fighting themselves for thousands of years. Chen nodded, her attention focused on reports streaming in from across human space. Each report looked like bad news to casual observers, but together they painted a picture of the most sophisticated military deception ever attempted on an interstellar scale. Admiral, Captain Torres called from his station, we're receiving communications from the outer colonies. Civilian leaders are reporting what appears to be alien infiltration of their communications networks. They're asking for instructions. Perfect. Chen's smile grew wider. Tell them to respond exactly as we discussed during the planning sessions. Confused, frightened, but not quite panicked enough to do anything truly desperate. The Council needs to believe that their intelligence gathering is working flawlessly. On the screens, the approaching alien fleets continued their advance, moving in formations that had been proven effective across centuries of conquest. Their communications chatter, intercepted by human intelligence networks, revealed complete confidence in their superior numbers, technology, and tactical doctrine. They saw the apparently scattered human forces as confirmation of their strategic assessments. What they didn't see were the preparations taking place in the shadows of human space. Supply caches being positioned with mathematical precision. Civilian volunteers being quietly briefed on roles that would prove crucial in the coming hours. Technology that had been developed in secret for exactly this scenario being moved into position by ships that officially didn't exist. General Webb, Chen said, her voice carrying a note of satisfaction, send a message to Admiral Harrison on Luna Base. Tell him the chessboard is set, the pieces are in position, and the opponent has made their opening move exactly as predicted. And if they deviate from our projections? Chen's expression grew serious. Then, we adapt. That's what humans do. We improvise, we overcome, and we win not because we're stronger or faster or more advanced than our enemies, but because we're better at the one thing that truly matters in warfare. Which is thinking. Chen turned back to the star charts, where the enemy fleets continued their advance toward what they believed would be an easy victory. The Council is about to learn that when humans go to war, we don't just fight with our weapons. We fight with our minds, our history, and our absolute refusal to lose. They think they're conquering a primitive species. What they're actually doing is walking into the most sophisticated trap ever constructed by human intelligence. As the countdown timer showed 71 hours and 43 minutes remaining until the ultimatum expired, the greatest game of interstellar chess in galactic history entered its opening phase. On one side, 3 of the most powerful alien civilizations ever to exist, confident in their overwhelming superiority and certain of victory. On the other side, humanity, appearing weak and scattered but actually more unified and prepared than at any other point in their species' history. The Council had made their opening move by demanding surrender. Now it was humanity's turn, and Admiral Sarah Chen was about to show the galaxy why humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to win against impossible odds. The game had begun, and, for the first time in their long histories of conquest, the Council species were about to discover what it meant to face an opponent that had elevated warfare from simple violence to high art. Commander Jake Morrison floated in the cramped cockpit of his modified mining vessel, the Rusty Bucket, watching through his viewports as the massive Krillian dreadnought Death's Herald approached the asteroid field where he'd been trapped for the past 6 hours. His ship's engines were dark, its hull scarred and battle-damaged from what appeared to be a recent engagement. Emergency broadcasts on all frequencies painted a picture of a desperate human survivor whose ship had been crippled while trying to evacuate civilians from the outer colonies. The reality was quite different. Morrison was a 20-year veteran of the Colonial Defense Force, holder of 3 medals for valor, and currently commanding one of the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering operations in human history. The Rusty Bucket looked like a broken-down hauler, but beneath its disguised hull lay sensor arrays that could map enemy ship configurations down to the molecular level, communication interceptors capable of breaking alien encryption in real time, and enough carefully concealed weaponry to cripple ships 10 times its size. Rusty Bucket *. This is the Death's Herald. The translation matrix rendered the Krillian commander's words into English, though it couldn't quite capture the contemptuous arrogance in the alien's tone. Prepare to be boarded for inspection. Any attempt to resist will result in your immediate destruction. Morrison keyed his transmitter, allowing just the right amount of fear to color his voice. Please, I'm just a miner. My ship was damaged in the fighting near Proxima Station. I'm not military, I don't even have weapons. I just want to get home to my family on Mars. Through his viewports, Morrison watched the kilometer-long dreadnought maneuver closer. Its hull was a work of art in destruction, covered in armor plating that could withstand direct hits from nuclear weapons, bristling with energy cannons capable of cracking planets, and scarred with the markings of 100 conquered worlds. The Krillians built their ships to inspire terror, and they'd succeeded admirably. What they hadn't succeeded at was learning to question their own assumptions. "Surrender is acceptable," the Krillian commander replied. "You will be processed according to Protocol 7. Your vessel will be searched and catalogued. If you cooperate, you may survive to serve the glory of the Empire." Morrison smiled grimly as he watched smaller Krillian assault craft launch from the dreadnought's hangar bays. Each one carried a full squad of Krillian warriors, 8-foot-tall humanoids with 4 arms, natural armor plating, and a culture that viewed battle as the highest form of religious expression. They were among the most feared fighters in the galaxy, and for good reason. They were also about to become unwitting participants in the largest intelligence operation humanity had ever undertaken. "Thank you," Morrison transmitted, allowing relief to flood his voice. "I'll cooperate completely. I just want this nightmare to be over." As the assault craft docked with his ship, Morrison activated systems that the Krillian sensors couldn't detect. Microscopic drones, no larger than dust particles, were released from hidden compartments throughout the Rusty Bucket. These drones would attach themselves to the Krillian boarding party's equipment and armor, providing real-time intelligence on everything from the aliens' tactical communications to the layout of their ships. The airlock cycled open, and Morrison found himself face-to-face with a Krillian boarding party. The squad leader was a massive specimen even by Krillian standards, his armor decorated with kill marks from dozens of conquered worlds. His 4 arms held weapons that could reduce Morrison to atoms, and his reptilian eyes studied the human with the cold calculation of a predator evaluating prey. "I am War Captain Gaxel of the Death's Herald," the alien announced, his voice a rumbling bass that vibrated through Morrison's bones. "You will submit to interrogation and search. Any deception will result in slow death." Morrison raised his hands in surrender, playing the part of a terrified civilian perfectly. "Of course, War Captain. I'll tell you anything you want to know. I just want to survive this." The Krillians spread through his ship with military efficiency, their sensors scanning everything. They found exactly what Morrison wanted them to find: a ship's log detailing desperate evacuation efforts, personal messages from family members on Mars, and evidence of hasty modifications to the ship's engines that suggested a civilian trying to flee rather than fight. What they didn't find were the quantum processors hidden within the ship's hull plating, the stealth communication arrays disguised as standard navigation equipment, or the detailed scans being taken of their own technology by sensors they couldn't detect. "Your species is weak," War Captain Gaxel observed as his warriors completed their search. "You flee instead of fighting. You scatter instead of standing together. The Empire will bring order to your chaos." Morrison nodded eagerly, playing up his role as a frightened survivor. "You're absolutely right, War Captain. We're not warriors like the Krillians. We just want to live peaceful lives, mine asteroids, raise our families. We never should have tried to resist the Empire." The War Captain's expression showed satisfaction at this confirmation of Krillian superiority. "Your government was foolish to defy the Council. When we reach your homeworld, your leaders will learn the price of opposing the Empire's will." "How many ships are coming?" Morrison asked, injecting just the right note of worried curiosity into his voice. "I mean, not that it matters. I'm sure the Empire has more than enough to handle anything we could throw at you." Gaxel's chest swelled with pride. "The mightiest fleet ever assembled approaches your pathetic world. 300 Devastator-class dreadnoughts, 1,000 Reaper-class battlecruisers, and 5,000 support vessels. Your entire species could not stand against even a fraction of our might." Morrison's eyes widened in apparent terror, though internally he was calculating the tactical implications of the numbers. Human intelligence had estimated the Krillian force at roughly those levels, but confirmation was always valuable. 300 dreadnoughts? We only have maybe 50 military ships in our entire fleet. 50? The War Captain's laughter was like grinding metal. "We destroyed more than that in the outer colonies yesterday. Your resistance is already broken. What remains is merely the formality of conquest." As the Krillians completed their inspection and prepared to return to their ship, Morrison allowed himself to appear increasingly dejected. "War Captain, if I may ask, what's going to happen to Earth? To the colonies? Those who submit will serve. Those who resist will die. Your species will learn to find honor in serving the Empire, or you will become extinct. It matters little to us which path you choose. After the Krillians departed, Morrison waited 30 minutes before activating his real communication systems. The quantum entanglement transmitter hidden in the ship's power core opened a channel that was completely undetectable by any known alien technology. "Control, this is Operative 7, he transmitted, using code phrases that would mean nothing to alien interceptors. "The fish have taken the bait. I have detailed scans of their assault craft, confirmation of fleet numbers, and full recordings of their tactical communications protocols. The microscopic surveillance packages are active and transmitting." Admiral Chen's voice came back immediately. "Excellent work, 7. What's your assessment of their psychological state?" "Completely overconfident, ma'am. They see our apparent weakness as confirmation of their own superiority. They're not even bothering with advanced tactical formations. They're approaching this as a conquest, not a battle." "Perfect. Maintain position and continue monitoring. Your intelligence package is being distributed to all tactical units as we speak. Phase 2 is now active." Across human space, similar scenes were playing out on dozens of worlds and space stations. Human survivors were being interrogated by alien forces, providing carefully crafted information while gathering intelligence that would prove crucial in the coming battle. Each interaction reinforced the aliens' belief that they were facing a weak, scattered enemy instead of the most sophisticated military deception in galactic history. On the Zephyrian Fleet flagship Lightning's Edge, Admiral Esycho studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. Her ships had intercepted numerous human military transmissions, all of which painted a picture of confusion and desperation. Human forces were scattered across dozens of star systems, their communications were filled with panic, and their defensive preparations appeared chaotic at best. "Commander," she addressed her tactical officer, "what is the status of the human fleet dispositions?" The younger Zephyrian manipulated the holographic display, showing red dots scattered across a three-dimensional map of local space. "Our intelligence indicates approximately 47 human vessels of various classes, Admiral. Most appear to be converted civilian craft with minimal weaponry. Their largest concentration is near their homeworld, but even there they have fewer than 20 ships." Admiral Esycho's features, delicate and angular like all her species, showed contempt for such poor tactical planning. "They place their strongest forces around their most valuable target, allowing us to strike everywhere else with impunity. Have they learned nothing from their own military history? Perhaps their own history lacks sufficient examples of proper tactical doctrine, Admiral. Perhaps." Esycho turned her attention to the communication logs. "What of their civilian transmissions?" "Panic, Admiral. Evacuation requests, pleas for protection, demands that their government surrender immediately to spare them from destruction. Their political unity appears to be collapsing under the pressure of our approach." The Admiral's satisfaction grew. The Zephyrian way of war emphasized speed, precision, and the psychological impact of overwhelming technological superiority. They had perfected the art of victory through shock and awe, striking so quickly and decisively that resistance crumbled before it could organize. The human response fit perfectly with historical patterns they had observed in hundreds of previous conquests. What the Zephyrians didn't realize was that every single transmission they had intercepted had been carefully crafted by human intelligence specialists who understood Zephyrian psychology better than the Zephyrians understood themselves. The apparent panic was manufactured, the scattered fleet dispositions were camouflage for hidden assets, and the political chaos was an elaborate performance designed to reinforce alien preconceptions about human weakness. Meanwhile, in the outer darkness beyond the edge of the solar system, the ethereal collective's consciousness ships drifted like metallic clouds through space. The ethereals existed as pure thought-given form, their vessels more grown than built, their technologies so advanced that it appeared almost magical to lesser species. They approached warfare as they approached everything else, as a mathematical problem to be solved through the application of superior intellect. The lead consciousness, designating itself as Axiom Prime for this operation, process the data streams flowing from thousands of sources throughout human space. Unlike their more physical allies, the ethereals could penetrate human computer networks directly, analyzing not just communications but the underlying patterns of data flow, resource allocation, and decision-making processes. What they found confirmed their initial assessment: humanity was a typical emerging civilization, reacting to superior force with predictable patterns of fear, confusion, and desperate improvisation. Their military preparation showed all the hallmarks of a species that had never faced truly advanced opposition. Their strategic thinking was linear and obvious, and their technology was crude compared to ethereal capabilities. The ethereals prided themselves on their ability to predict the behavior of lesser species with mathematical precision. They had developed models that could forecast the outcome of any conflict with 99.97% accuracy simply by analyzing the initial conditions and applying their understanding of inferior minds to the problem. Their models predicted complete human capitulation within 4.7 standard time units of the beginning of hostilities, with less than 0.3% probability of effective resistance lasting longer than 7.2 time units. The mathematics were clear, elegant, and absolutely certain. What the ethereals' mathematical models couldn't account for was that the data they were analyzing had been specifically designed to produce exactly those conclusions. Every database they penetrated, every communication they intercepted, and every strategic decision they observed had been carefully crafted by humans who understood that the ethereals' greatest strength was also their greatest weakness: their absolute confidence in their own intellectual superiority. The three alien fleets continued their approach toward Earth, each one certain of victory for different reasons. The Krillians saw weak prey that would fall before their military might. The Zephyrians observed scattered, confused enemies who could be defeated through superior speed and technology. The ethereals calculated the mathematical certainty of triumph over an inferior species. None of them suspected that they were walking into the most sophisticated trap in military history, designed by a species that had learned to wage war not through superior strength or technology, but through superior understanding of the enemy's mind. As the countdown timer reached 48 hours until the Council's ultimatum expired, the second phase of humanity's greatest deception continued to unfold. Across human space, the apparent weakness and chaos grew more convincing by the hour, while beneath the surface, the most complex military operation ever attempted moved toward its climax. The aliens saw exactly what they expected to see: a primitive species crumbling under pressure. What they failed to see was that humanity had spent centuries learning to appear weak when strong, to seem scattered when unified, and to look defeated when victory was within their grasp. The art of war, as practiced by humans, was about to give the galaxy a lesson it would never forget. Dr. Yuki Tanaka stood in the heart of the Kuiper Belt Research Station, surrounded by holographic displays showing the real positions of humanity's assets across the solar system. To any outside observer, the station appeared to be a simple scientific outpost studying ice formations and distant planetary objects. The reality was far more complex. The research station was actually the coordination center for Operation Phantom Night, humanity's most ambitious military deception. Hidden within its laboratories were quantum computers running millions of tactical simulations, communication arrays coordinating with sleeper agents across dozens of star systems, and fabrication facilities producing technology that officially didn't exist. "Status report," Dr. Tanaka said quietly, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent 15 years preparing for this exact moment. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Park, on loan from South Korea's Special Operations Command, manipulated the central display. "All Phase 2 objectives are complete, Dr. Tanaka. The Krillians have accepted our fleet strength estimates as accurate. The Zephyrians believe our defensive positions are chaotic and poorly coordinated. The ethereals are processing data streams that confirm their mathematical models of human weakness." Dr. Tanaka nodded, her attention focused on a countdown timer showing 36 hours until the ultimatum expired. "And our real assets?" "Positioned exactly as planned." Park highlighted different sections of the solar system in green. "The ghost fleets are maintaining stealth positions throughout the asteroid belt. Our converted civilian vessels have reached their designated coordinates. The volunteer militia units are ready for activation. Most importantly, the mining installations have completed their conversions." On the display, what appeared to be abandoned mining operations throughout the outer system were revealed to be something else entirely. Over the past 3 years, while maintaining the appearance of extracting minerals from asteroids and comets, human engineers had been hollowing out these celestial bodies and converting them into weapons platforms. Thousands of asteroids now contained hidden missile launchers, particle beam arrays, and, most importantly, the means to move under their own power. Dr. Tanaka, Captain Rodriguez, the station's military liaison, looked up from his communication station. "We're receiving reports from our deep cover agents in the Centauri colonies. The alien advance forces are behaving exactly as our psychological profiles predicted." Dr. Tanaka smiled thinly. The Centauri colonies were humanity's most distant settlements, for light years from Earth and positioned perfectly to serve as early warning posts for approaching alien fleets. More importantly, they were home to nearly 50,000 human civilians who had volunteered to play the most dangerous role in the entire operation. "What's the status of Operation Trojan Horse?" Captain Rodriguez consulted his secure communications panel. "The colonies are reporting successful contact with Krillian advance scouts. Our people are maintaining their cover as desperate refugees seeking protection from their own government's reckless military policies. The Krillians are interpreting this as evidence that human political unity is collapsing under pressure." The plan was breathtakingly audacious. Instead of evacuating the distant colonies, humanity had reinforced them with its most experienced intelligence operatives, combat veterans disguised as civilians, and technology hidden so thoroughly that even detailed alien scans wouldn't reveal its true nature. When the main alien fleets arrived, they would find what appeared to be human populations ready to collaborate with their conquerors. Any problems with maintaining the deception? None so far. Our psychological conditioning programs are holding up perfectly. The volunteers are able to maintain their cover identities even under intense alien interrogation. The Krillians are so convinced of their own superiority that they're accepting our people's defection as natural and inevitable. Dr. Tanaka turned her attention to another section of the display, where civilian evacuation ships appeared to be fleeing toward the inner system in apparent panic. "And our mobile assets?" Lieutenant Colonel Park highlighted the evacuation fleet. 200,000 apparently civilian vessels, each one carrying hidden military capabilities. The aliens are tracking them as refugees, but they're actually the largest mobile fleet humanity has ever assembled. Every cargo hauler, passenger liner, and transport ship has been modified with concealed weapons, stealth systems, and enough supplies to operate independently for months. The beauty of it, Dr. Tanaka observed, is that the aliens expect civilians to run. They see our evacuation as confirmation that we're a weak, scattered species more concerned with individual survival than collective resistance. They have no concept of a civilization that could turn its entire civilian population into a military asset. The central display shifted to show intelligence reports flowing in from across the galaxy. Human agents, some of whom had been in deep cover for decades, were providing real-time updates on alien fleet movements, command structures, and, most importantly, the psychological state of enemy commanders. Dr. Tanaka, Captain Rodriguez said, "We're receiving priority communications from Agent Phoenix in the Krillian fleet." The display shifted to show a communication from one of humanity's most valuable intelligence assets. Agent Phoenix had spent 8 years working as a slave translator aboard Krillian vessels, appearing to be a broken human who had accepted his fate while actually gathering intelligence on every aspect of Krillian military doctrine. "The war leaders are growing increasingly confident," the encrypted message reported. "They're discussing plans for the post-conquest period, including which human worlds will be used as military bases and which populations will be enslaved for labor. They see no possibility of effective resistance and are already treating this as a celebration rather than a battle." Dr. Tanaka's expression hardened. The alien's casual discussion of enslaving her species only reinforced her determination to ensure that humanity's response would be devastating enough to prevent any similar future attempts at conquest. "What about our other deep cover assets?" Lieutenant Colonel Park pulled up additional intelligence reports. Agent Whisper in the Zephyrian fleet reports that their commanders are planning to use this conquest as a demonstration of their technological superiority to intimidate other species. They want to make humanity's defeat so swift and complete that it serves as an example to the rest of the galaxy. And the Ethereals? Agent Mirror has been more difficult to contact due to their unique communication methods, but the last report indicates that they view this operation as a mathematical exercise. They're approaching the conquest of humanity as a validation of their theoretical models about inferior species. They expect us to surrender once we realize the futility of resistance. Dr. Tanaka studied the tactical displays, noting how perfectly the alien fleets were positioning themselves for what they believed would be an easy victory. Each species was moving according to their traditional doctrines, following patterns that had served them well in hundreds of previous conquests. What they didn't understand was that humans had spent decades studying those same patterns, identifying weaknesses, and developing countermeasures. Dr. Tanaka, Captain Rodriguez called, "We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Chen. Phase 3 is authorized to begin." The displays around the room shifted to show the real scope of humanity's preparations. What had appeared to be a scattered, panicking civilization was revealed to be the most sophisticated military operation in galactic history. Every element had been positioned with mathematical precision, every deception carefully crafted to reinforce alien preconceptions, every asset hidden until the moment when it would have maximum impact. "Initiate the awakening sequence," Dr. Tanaka ordered. Across the solar system, thousands of abandoned mining installations began to stir. Hollowed-out asteroids that had appeared to be empty for months suddenly showed signs of internal activity. Power cores that had been dormant came online, but their energy signatures were carefully masked to appear as natural background radiation. Weapon systems that had been disguised as mining equipment began their startup sequences. "The Ghost Fleets are reporting ready status," Lieutenant Colonel Park announced. "All stealth ships have reached their assigned positions. The civilian evacuation fleet has completed weapons deployment. Our deep cover agents are in position to provide targeting data for the main assault." Dr. Tanaka watched the countdown timer reach 24 hours. In one day, the Galactic Council's ultimatum would expire, and the alien fleets would begin what they believed would be a simple conquest. Instead, they would walk into the most carefully prepared ambush in military history. "Status of our psychological warfare division?" Captain Rodriguez smiled grimly. "Ready to initiate the final phase of the deception. When the battle begins, we'll flood alien communication networks with false data designed to maximize confusion and panic. Their own intelligence networks will become weapons against them." The plan was audacious in its scope. Not only had humanity prepared militarily for the coming battle, they had also prepared psychologically. Every alien species had weaknesses in their command structures, flaws in their communication protocols, and blind spots in their tactical thinking. Human intelligence had identified these vulnerabilities and developed ways to exploit them at the worst possible moment for the enemy. "Dr. Tanaka," Lieutenant Colonel Park said quietly, "are you certain we're ready for this? Once we begin Phase 3, there's no going back. The aliens will know they've been deceived, and they'll never underestimate humanity again." Dr. Tanaka looked around the command center, seeing the faces of men and women who had dedicated years of their lives to this moment. They came from every nation on Earth, every colony in human space, and every walk of life. What united them was not politics or religion or ideology, but something simpler and more powerful: the determination to ensure that humanity would never bow to alien masters. "Colonel Park, in 30 minutes we'll transmit the activation codes to every human asset in known space. The mining platforms will begin their approach runs. The Ghost Fleets will decloak and begin their attacks. The civilian evacuation fleet will reveal its true nature and engage enemy forces from behind. Our deep cover agents will begin sabotage operations from within alien vessels." She paused, studying the tactical displays that showed 3 massive alien fleets approaching Earth with complete confidence in their superiority. "But, most importantly, we'll show the galaxy what happens when a species that has survived ice ages, global wars, and the colonization of hostile worlds decides to fight for its freedom. The aliens think they understand warfare, but they've never faced an enemy that turned conflict into an art form over thousands of years of practice." The countdown timer showed 23 hours and 47 minutes remaining. Around the solar system, humanity's greatest military operation continued to unfold in absolute silence, hidden beneath layers of deception that had taken decades to construct. Signal all units, Dr. Tanaka ordered. Operation Phantom Night is entering its final phase. In 24 hours, the galaxy will learn why humans have never lost a war when we decided victory was the only acceptable outcome. As the command went out, carried by quantum communication systems that the aliens couldn't detect or intercept, the true scope of human preparation became clear. This wasn't just a military operation, it was a demonstration of what happened when an entire species united behind a single goal. Every human in known space, from Earth's highest military commanders to colonists on the most distant worlds, was playing a role in the greatest strategic deception in galactic history. The aliens approaching Earth thought they were conquering a primitive, divided species. They were about to discover that they had declared war on the most dangerous predator ever to emerge from a backwater world at the edge of nowhere. And, in less than 24 hours, the hunt would begin. The moment arrived with the precision of a Swiss timepiece. As the Galactic Council's ultimatum expired, 3 massive alien fleets began their final approach toward Earth. The Krillian Devastator-class dreadnoughts moved in traditional battle formations, their kilometer-long hulls bristling with enough firepower to crack continents. The Zephyrian Lightning fleets darted between them like silver arrows, their ships designed for speed and devastating alpha strikes. The ethereal consciousness ships drifted through space like metallic clouds, their very presence warping reality around them. Admiral Sarachin stood in the buried command center beneath the Swiss Alps, watching the tactical displays with the calm expression of someone who had spent 3 years preparing for this exact moment. Around her, the finest military minds from Earth worked in focused silence, their voices reduced to whispers as they coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. "All fleets report ready status," General Webb announced, his weathered face showing grim satisfaction. "The aliens are positioning themselves exactly as our models predicted." "Enemy communications?" Chen asked. Dr. Vasquez manipulated her console, displaying intercepted alien transmissions. "Complete confidence across all 3 fleets. The Krillians are discussing which human worlds they'll claim as tribute. The Zephyrians are treating this as a technological demonstration for other species. The Ethereals are running final mathematical models that show 99.97% probability of human capitulation within hours." Chen smiled coldly. "Then, they're about to receive the most expensive education in galactic history. Captain Torres, signal all units. Operation Phantom Night is now active. Begin Phase 4. Across the solar system, humanity's true strength began to reveal itself. The first sign that something was wrong came to War Captain Gaxel aboard the Krillian dreadnought Death's Herald. His tactical displays showed what appeared to be mining debris floating in the asteroid belt ahead of his fleet, exactly as expected. Then, the debris began to move. "War Captain," his sensor operator's voice carried a note of confusion, "I'm detecting power signatures from the asteroid field. Multiple contacts, moving under their own power." Gaxel studied the displays, his forearms manipulating controls with practiced efficiency. What his sensors showed defied explanation. Chunks of rock and ice that should have been completely inert were accelerating toward his fleet, their courses too precise to be natural. "Impossible. Asteroids cannot move independently. Check your equipment." "Sensors are functioning perfectly, War Captain. The contacts are accelerating at 200 meters per second squared. They're on intercept courses with our fleet." Before Gaxel could respond, the asteroids revealed their true nature. Hidden launch bays opened across their surfaces, and thousands of missiles streaked toward the Krillian fleet. But these weren't ordinary weapons. Each missile was equipped with warheads designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in Krillian armor plating, weaknesses that had been identified through years of careful intelligence gathering. "Defensive fire!" Gaxel roared, but his gunners were already responding. The space between the asteroids and the Krillian fleet lit up with energy beams and defensive missiles. Many of the incoming weapons were destroyed, but not all. Not nearly all. The first missile strikes hit the Death's Herald with surgical precision, targeting specific points where Krillian armor was thinnest. Secondary explosions rippled across the massive ship's hull as human weapons, designed by scientists who understood Krillian metallurgy better than most Krillians, punched through defenses that had never been breached. War Captain, his damage control officer reported, we have multiple hull breaches. The humans somehow knew exactly where to hit us. Gaxel's reptilian features twisted in rage and confusion. This is impossible. Our intelligence reports showed scattered human forces with minimal weaponry. Where did these weapons come from? His question was answered as more asteroids revealed their true nature. Mining installations that had appeared abandoned for months suddenly blazed with activity. Particle beam arrays emerged from hidden compartments, their targeting systems locking onto Krillian vessels with inhuman precision. What the aliens had dismissed as industrial debris was actually a network of fortress installations, each one positioned to create overlapping fields of fire. All ships, assume battle formation Delta. Gaxel commanded. Return fire on all targets. But, as the Krillian fleet attempted to respond, they discovered that their enemies had vanished. The asteroid fortresses, their initial salvo complete, had gone dark again. Their active sensors showed nothing but empty space and drifting debris, yet missiles and energy beams continued to streak out of the darkness. Meanwhile, Admiral Esycho aboard the Zephyrian flagship Lightning's Edge was experiencing her own nightmare. Her fleet's advanced sensors, capable of tracking objects moving at significant fractions of light speed, had detected what appeared to be a massive evacuation fleet fleeing toward the inner system. Standard Zephyrian doctrine called for intercepting such fleets to prevent the escape of enemy leaders and resources. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, we have successfully intercepted the human evacuation convoy. 200,000 civilian vessels, mostly cargo haulers and passenger liners. They're requesting permission to surrender. Esycho nodded with satisfaction. Board the lead vessels and confirm their surrender. Once we control their civilian population, their military will have no choice but to capitulate. The Zephyrian assault craft launched toward what appeared to be helpless civilian ships. The humans aboard those vessels were transmitting surrender requests, begging for mercy, pleading to be spared. It was exactly what Zephyrian psychology predicted from an inferior species faced with overwhelming force. The assault craft had closed to within 500 kilometers when the civilian fleet revealed its secret. Cargo bays that should have contained trade goods or refugees instead held military-grade particle accelerators. Passenger liners that appeared to be fleeing in panic suddenly bristled with weapon arrays that had been hidden beneath false hull plating. Even the smallest transport vessels opened fire with weapons that matched or exceeded the firepower of Zephyrian warships. Admiral, the tactical officer's voice cracked with shock. The civilian fleet is armed. Every vessel is broadcasting military-grade targeting data. They're not refugees, they're warships. The space around the Zephyrian fleet exploded into chaos as 200,000 civilian vessels opened fire simultaneously. The aliens' advanced shields, designed to deflect the energy weapons typically used by other species, proved less effective against the kinetic projectiles and exotic energy types that human engineers had developed specifically for this engagement. Admiral Esycho watched in horror as her pursuit squadrons were savaged by weapons fire from ships that her intelligence had identified as harmless civilian transports. How is this possible? Our sensors detected no military equipment on those vessels. Her answer came as the human fleet executed a maneuver that no civilian evacuation could possibly perform. Moving with the precision of a military formation, the 200,000 ships spread into attack positions that maximized their overlapping fields of fire while minimizing their exposure to Zephyrian weapons. Admiral, her communications officer reported, were receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it through. The voice that emerged from the speakers carried a distinctly human accent, but the tone was that of a professional military officer. Admiral Esycho, this is Fleet Admiral Harrison of the Human Colonial Defense Force. You are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now and your crews will be treated according to the standards of civilized warfare. Esycho's delicate features twisted in rage. Impossible. You're civilians. Refugees. No, Admiral. We're soldiers. We've been soldiers all along. Your intelligence networks have been feeding you exactly what we wanted you to believe for the past 3 years. Every piece of data you collected about human military capabilities, every assessment of our strategic thinking, every psychological profile your analysts created was carefully crafted disinformation. The Zephyrian admiral stared at her tactical displays in growing horror as the true scope of human preparation became clear. The evacuation fleet wasn't running from Earth, it was moving to attack positions. The scattered human forces weren't evidence of poor coordination, they were elements of the most sophisticated ambush in galactic history. But the greatest shock was yet to come. High above the battle, the ethereal consciousness ships maintained their positions in what they believed was perfect safety. The ethereals, existing as pure thought-given form, considered themselves beyond the reach of physical weapons. Their consciousness ships were protected by reality distortion fields that made them effectively invulnerable to conventional attack. Axiom Prime, the lead consciousness, processed the battle data flowing from the engagement below with growing confusion. The mathematical models were wrong. The humans weren't behaving according to any previously observed pattern for inferior species. Their tactical coordination exceeded even ethereal standards, and their strategic planning showed a level of sophistication that the models said was impossible. Query: how do the humans coordinate such complex operations without our advanced consciousness linking technology? Axiom Prime transmitted to its subordinate intelligences. Response: unknown. Their communication methods appear crude yet achieve superior tactical coordination. This presents a significant discontinuity in our predictive models. Axiom Prime was processing this anomaly when the humans revealed their final surprise. Space around the ethereal ships began to shimmer as previously invisible vessels decloaked. These weren't the crude, boxy ships that human intelligence had allowed the aliens to observe. These were sleek, advanced vessels that had been constructed in secret shipyards hidden throughout the outer system. Alert, human vessels are materializing around our position. Their stealth technology exceeds our detection capabilities. But the truly shocking development came when the human ships opened fire. Instead of conventional weapons, they unleashed something the ethereals had never encountered: reality anchors. Devices that locked spacetime into fixed patterns, preventing the reality manipulation that ethereal technology depended on. For the first time in their species' history, the ethereals found themselves trapped in normal spacetime, unable to phase shift away from danger, unable to manipulate reality to deflect incoming weapons. Their consciousness ships, stripped of their greatest advantage, were revealed to be surprisingly vulnerable to conventional attack. Emergency: reality distortion fields are failing. Consciousness ship hulls are taking damage. Request immediate tactical recommendations. Axiom Prime, for the first time in eons of existence, experienced something approaching panic. Query: how do humans possess reality anchor technology? Our models indicated their understanding of dimensional physics was primitive. The answer came in the form of a human transmission directed specifically at the ethereal fleet. Greetings, Axiom Prime. This is Dr. Elena Vasquez of the Human Coalition. We've been studying your technology for 15 years, ever since we captured one of your scout probes. Reality anchors were the obvious counter to consciousness ship defensive systems. The transmission continued with what, for the ethereals, was the most disturbing information possible. You see, Axiom Prime, your greatest weakness is the same as your greatest strength: your absolute confidence in your own intellectual superiority. You never considered that a species you dismissed as inferior might be capable of understanding and countering your technology. Across the battlefield, all three alien fleets found themselves trapped in scenarios they had never imagined possible. The Krillians, masters of direct combat, faced enemies that struck from invisible positions and vanished before retaliation was possible. The Zephyrians, who relied on speed and technological superiority, were surrounded by forces that matched their capabilities while vastly outnumbering them. The ethereals, accustomed to fighting from dimensions beyond physical reality, were locked into normal spacetime and vulnerable for the first time in their history. In the command center beneath the Swiss Alps, Admiral Chen watched the battle unfold with grim satisfaction. General Webb, what's our casualty assessment? Minimal on our side, Admiral. The aliens are taking heavy losses across all three fleets. Their command structures are in chaos, their tactical doctrines are proving completely inadequate, and their morale is collapsing. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her psychological analysis station. Admiral, we're intercepting communications from all three fleets. The alien commanders are requesting emergency consultations with their high commands. They're trying to understand how their intelligence could have been so completely wrong. Chen nodded. And that's when we spring the final part of the trap. Captain Torres, initiate the revelation protocol. It's time to show them exactly how we did this. Across the battlefield, human forces began transmitting detailed information about Operation Phantom Night. The aliens learned how every piece of intelligence they had gathered had been carefully manufactured. They discovered that their most trusted sources had been human agents all along. They realized that their own psychological profiles had been turned against them, used to predict and exploit their tactical responses. Most importantly, they learned that humanity had been preparing for this battle not for months or years, but for decades. Every aspect of the operation, from the hidden asteroid fortresses to the disguised civilian fleet to the reality anchors that trapped the ethereals, had been planned and constructed while maintaining the appearance of a primitive, divided civilization. As the alien fleets began to break apart under the relentless human assault, one fact became clear to every commander on both sides: the galaxy had just witnessed the emergence of a new kind of warfare. Not based on superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but on the systematic application of intelligence, deception, and psychological manipulation on an unprecedented scale. The trap had been sprung, and the hunters had become the hunted. The silence that followed the ceasefire was more profound than any sound of battle. Admiral Sarah Chen stood before the main holographic display in the command center, watching as the three most powerful military forces in galactic history transmitted their unconditional surrender. The Krillian Empire, which had conquered hundreds of worlds through superior firepower, had lost 60% of their invasion fleet. The Zephyrian Federation, masters of lightning warfare, had seen their technological advantage turned into a weakness. The ethereal collective, who had considered themselves beyond the reach of physical conflict, had learned that even gods could bleed when pulled down to mortal realms. Admiral, General Webb reported, his voice carrying a mixture of exhaustion and satisfaction, all enemy fleets have powered down their weapons and are requesting terms for surrender. The battle is over. Chen nodded slowly, her dark eyes reflecting the soft blue glow of tactical displays that now showed the complete collapse of alien resistance. Around her, the command staff worked with quiet efficiency, processing the surrender of forces that had been considered invincible just hours before. Casualty reports, she asked. Captain Torres looked up from his station. Remarkably light on our side, Admiral. We lost fewer than 50 vessels and approximately 3,000 personnel. The enemy losses are substantial. Preliminary estimates suggest they've lost over half their effective fighting strength. The numbers told only part of the story. What mattered more than ships destroyed or lives lost was what humanity had accomplished on a strategic level. In a single engagement, they had shattered the reputation of three galactic superpowers and established themselves as the dominant military force in known space. Dr. Vasquez, Chen called to the xenobiologist, what's the psychological assessment of enemy leadership? Dr. Vasquez manipulated her console, displaying communication intercepts from the surrendering fleets. Complete psychological collapse among the command structures, Admiral. The alien commanders are experiencing what can only be described as existential shock. They're struggling to understand how every aspect of their strategic thinking could have been wrong. The display showed excerpts from alien communications, translated by human computers that had spent years learning to interpret nuanced alien thought patterns. The messages painted a picture of military leaders who had been forced to confront the complete failure of their most fundamental assumptions about warfare, intelligence, and their own superiority. Admiral, Captain Torres said quietly, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Galactic Council. They're requesting immediate negotiations. Chen smiled coldly. The Galactic Council, which had issued humanity an ultimatum 48 hours ago, was now begging to talk. The balance of power had shifted so completely that the very organization that had demanded human surrender was now seeking terms. Put them through. The holographic display shifted to show the council chamber, where representatives of dozens of species sat in stunned silence. At the center of the assembly, Chancellor Vexmore of the Altarian hegemony, the council's current leader, appeared to have aged significantly since their last communication. Admiral Chen, the Chancellor began, his usually commanding voice now carrying notes of uncertainty and fear. The Council wishes to express our surprise at recent developments. We had not anticipated such effective resistance from humanity. Resistance? Chen's voice remained perfectly calm, but her words carried the weight of absolute authority. Chancellor, what you witnessed was not resistance. It was a demonstration. We allowed your fleets to approach our territory, we permitted them to position themselves according to their preferred tactical doctrines, and then, we showed them why those doctrines were inadequate. The Chancellor's alien features, normally composed and arrogant, showed visible distress. Admiral, surely we can reach some accommodation. The Council has no desire to continue hostilities with your species. That's fortunate, Chancellor, because as of this moment, you lack the capability to continue hostilities with anyone. Chen gestured to her tactical displays, which now showed the positions of human fleets throughout the galaxy. While your attention was focused on our apparent weakness near Earth, our real forces were taking positions throughout your territories. The Chancellor's expression shifted to horror as the implications became clear. Impossible. Our intelligence networks would have detected such movements. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone whose life's work had just achieved perfect vindication. Chancellor, your intelligence networks have been compromised for over a decade. Every report you received about human capabilities, every assessment of our strategic thinking, every piece of data about our military preparations was filtered through human intelligence operations. The display shifted to show a comprehensive breakdown of Operation Phantom Knight's intelligence components. Across the galaxy, thousands of human agents were revealing themselves simultaneously. Diplomats who had seemed harmless were actually intelligence operatives. Traders who appeared to be simple merchants had been mapping alien military installations. Scientists working in alien universities had been studying weaknesses in alien technology and psychology. You see, Chancellor, Chen continued, the greatest mistake you made was assuming that a species capable of interstellar flight would be primitive in other ways. You looked at our apparent political divisions, our economic competitions, our cultural differences, and saw weakness. What you failed to understand is that these same qualities that make us appear chaotic also make us adaptable, creative, and unpredictable. Chancellor Vexmore's composure cracked completely. What do you want from us? Chen's expression grew serious, the satisfaction of victory replaced by the weight of responsibility. This moment would determine not just humanity's place in the galaxy, but the future of interstellar civilization itself. First, the immediate withdrawal of all alien military forces from human space. Second, the recognition of human sovereignty over our current territories and any worlds we choose to settle in the future. Third, full diplomatic recognition of humanity as an equal member of galactic civilization. And, if we refuse? Chen gestured to the tactical displays showing the complete destruction of 3 invasion fleets. Chancellor, you're not in a position to refuse. But, more importantly, you don't want to refuse. Because what you witnessed today was humanity operating under rules of engagement designed to minimize casualties and preserve the possibility of future cooperation. The threat was clear without being explicitly stated. The aliens had seen humanity defeat their best forces while barely trying. The implication that humans had been holding back, that they possessed even greater capabilities than they had demonstrated, sent ripples of fear through the council chamber. However, Chen continued, her tone shifting to something more conciliatory, humanity has no desire to become a galactic conqueror. We seek partnership, not domination. What we demonstrated today was not our desire to destroy other civilizations, but our capability to defend ourselves and our allies. Dr. Vasquez added her own assessment. The Council should understand that humanity's approach to warfare is fundamentally different from other species. We don't fight to acquire territory or resources. We fight to preserve our freedom and protect our people. When those goals are achieved, we prefer cooperation to continued conflict. The Chancellor looked around the council chamber, seeking support from other species representatives. What he saw was fear, confusion, and the dawning recognition that the galaxy had changed forever. The three species that had dominated interstellar politics for millennia had been humbled by newcomers from a backwater world. Admiral Chan, Chancellor Vexmore said finally, "The Council accepts your terms. We will withdraw our forces immediately and recognize human sovereignty. We hope that this unfortunate misunderstanding can be the beginning of more productive relations between our peoples." Chen nodded graciously, though everyone present understood that this was victory accepting the surrender of the defeated, not a negotiation between equals. "Chancellor, humanity looks forward to working with the Council as partners rather than subjects. We have much to offer galactic civilization, and much to learn from it." As the transmission ended, Chen turned to address her staff. The command center, which had been the nerve center of the most complex military operation in history, was now the seat of humanity's emergence as a galactic power. "General Webb, begin the transition to peacekeeping operations. Our fleets are to maintain their positions but stand down from combat readiness. We want to demonstrate that we're capable of both victory and restraint." Admiral Dr. Vasquez asked, "What about our intelligence networks? Do we reveal the full extent of our penetration of alien governments?" Chen considered the question carefully. The revelation that humanity had infiltrated alien civilizations so thoroughly would certainly ensure that no one would underestimate them again. But it might also make future cooperation more difficult. "We reveal enough to ensure that no one considers testing our capabilities, but not so much that we make cooperation impossible. The galaxy needs to understand that we're formidable, but also that we can be trusted as allies." Captain Torres looked up from his communication station. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from across human space. The civilian populations are celebrating, but they're also asking what comes next. How do we transition from being a hidden military power to being an open member of galactic civilization?" It was a good question. For decades, humanity had operated in secret, building strength while appearing weak, preparing for war while hoping for peace. Now they had achieved victory, but victory brought its own challenges. "Captain, signal all human colonies and Earth itself. Tell them that we've won not just a military victory, but the right to determine our own destiny among the stars. We're no longer a species seeking acceptance from our betters. We're equal partners in galactic civilization." As orders went out across human space, the true scope of what had been accomplished began to become clear. Humanity had not just defeated 3 invasion fleets. They had demonstrated capabilities that would force every species in the galaxy to reconsider their assumptions about warfare, intelligence, and the nature of power itself. The tactical doctrine that Admiral Chan and her planners had employed would be studied in military academies for centuries. The combination of strategic deception, psychological manipulation, and technological innovation that had made victory possible represented a new evolution in the art of war. But, perhaps most importantly, humanity had proven something that would resonate throughout the galaxy, that intelligence, properly applied, was more powerful than any weapon. That patience and planning could overcome superior numbers and technology. That a species willing to think 10 moves ahead could defeat enemies who relied on the strategies that had worked in the past. "Admiral," General Webb said quietly, "what do we call this day in the history books?" Chen looked around the command center, at the faces of men and women who had spent years preparing for this moment, who had risked everything on a plan so audacious that even they hadn't been certain it would work. "We call it the day humanity stopped asking for a place at the galactic table and took one. The day we proved that evolution doesn't stop with reaching the stars. And the day the galaxy learned that when humans decide to win, we don't just defeat our enemies. We make victory inevitable." As the command center began the transition from wartime to peacetime operations, Admiral Sarah Chen allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The species that had emerged from the caves and forests of Earth had faced the greatest challenge in their history and not merely survived, but triumphed. The galaxy would never be the same. And humanity, operating in silence, strategizing intelligently, and striking perfectly, had ensured that it would be a better place for generations to come. The art of war, as practiced by humans, had just written its greatest masterpiece. And the universe was taking notes.